Hey everybody, welcome to week 1. We're going to start tutorial 3. We'll be doing session 3.1, 3.2, and 3.3. All your assignments and your quizzes will be due on February 9th. We're doing a little over 2 weeks to get this one done just because, this is the beginning of the semester and it takes time for you to figure out how to manage your time a little bit. You will need MindTap. Don't forget to do the introduction form, okay? Got some videos for you to watch, but we're going to start by just going through and talking about tutorial 3 and reading the chapter. Okay. So we'll be working with the chocolate business. We'll be creating a reset style sheet, explore page layout designs, center some block elements, create some floating elements, clear some floating elements, and prevent container collapse. That's for 3.1, okay? So here is a overview of the page we'll be working with. You can see here our page body styles, the horizontally centered a block element, set the left and right margins to auto. So you see margin left auto, margin right auto. The width property defines the width of an element. The max width property sets its maximum possible width. That means no matter how big your screen is, that object is only going to get so big, okay? And of course, just like a cell phone, the smaller you get, you can set your min width property, and that's the smallest that's going to get. The first thing we're going to talk about when we dive into tutorial 3 is the display property, and how an element, it defines how an element should be laid out. We're going to show you how to clear floating objects so they stack on top of each other, stack side by side, things like that. The vertical navigation list and contact info sections are floated as separate columns, so we're going to learn how to do that. All horizontal list items, let me move that over just a bit, are floated on the left to create columns, okay? The float property takes an object out of its normal document flow, because remember, most things just stack up on top of each other because they're blocks, just like you're building a pyramid out of your blocks and you're just stacking them up. Well, we can tell the float to do things, so we can tell this block, I don't want you under this, I want you beside this, to the left, or you can tell it to the right. And when you do things like that, sometimes you have to clear it like it does down here. So we're going to go over some of that stuff. The left and right column sections are floated with widths of 33% and 67%. We'll go into a little bit more of the responsive design in this course. And if you remember when we talked about it last semester in CTI 110, which I think you had to read about it, we didn't talk about it. When we do responsive design, we do percents. The sizes are going to be sized based on the percent of our viewpoint, our monitor, how big our monitor is, okay? So if you see a percent, it's gonna move with your monitor. It's gonna stretch out, get smaller. If we use pixels, that's a static, okay? Pixels are static. They're not going to change. So static means that they're not going to change. And if we use pixels, that no matter how big or small our monitors or our viewpoints are, they're always going to be the same size. Alright, to prevent an element containing only floated elements from collapsing, we have to use the after pseudo element and the content property to generate a placeholder element. So we're going to learn a little bit about that too. Okay, and then notice it says here display table. All the rest of them are display blocks. So we'll get into that a little bit more also. This is what the website should look like when we get done, okay? This is your page body, and this is your the back of the HTML page. So if this has a max width, when we bring this up, these right here are going to get bigger on the sides, okay? The horizontal list items are floated into separate columns, and you've seen the code over here that showed that. Left and right sections are floated into separate columns. So we've got this section and this section. And then we've got our columns down at the bottom, at the footer. Okay? So let's move along. Introducing the display style. So the display style defines how an individual element is presented on the page, like we talked about before, okay? We learned in CTI 110 and Tutorial 1, so if you need to go back and get a little refresher, that tutorial is available to you in this class. We learned that elements are classified into block elements such as paragraphs, the headings, or the inline elements such as emphasized text or inline images, okay? Whether an element is displayed as a block or as an inline depends on our style sheet, and we can define the display style for any page element with this CSS property right here, display type. And these are the types that we can use. If I can get that. So the block, we can get it to display as a web table, display inline with a block. So what does inline with a block mean? So if we did an inline image within a sentence or a paragraph, we'll say a paragraph, that's going to be inside that paragraph image, right? So if we do it with inline with a block, then it's going to go along in line with the current block that it's in. Run in displayed as a block unless its next sibling is also a block, in which case it is displayed in line, essentially combining the two blocks to one. Inherit is going to inherit its display property from its parent. List item, you can display as a list item along with a bullet marker. And none, you can say display none, and that's going to prevent it from even rendering on the page, okay? For example, to supersede the usual browser style that displays images inline, you can apply the following style rule in a style sheet that tells all of your images to display as blocks. So wherever it finds that image tag in your HTML file, it's going to pull that image out and make it like a block. Okay, so your text is either going to be on top of it or up under it. The same thing you could do with the block quotes. I don't know if you remember from last semester, but you can display those as list items if you wanted to. You can even, so like we talked about up there, you can even tell your browser not to display something at all. You can, in your CSS properties of that particular element, you can say display none, and it won't show up on the rendered HTML page. Alright, so when we start messing around with how we want the browser to display our items, we want to do a reset style sheet so we can kind of have a clean slate, so to speak. So, you know, our browser applies, it's got its own styles that it applies, and I don't know if you remember the hierarchy in which the styles are applied in the browser. If no style is found at all, the browser has its own style it applies to. So we just want to make sure we know all of those styles are reset to what ours say, okay? So we can accomplish this by coding out a reset style sheet that supersedes the browser's default styles and provides a consistent starting point for the page design. Alright, So what we're going to do right here, I'm going to split my screen. And I don't know if you guys, this is a cool little trick. If you hit your Windows key on your keyboard and your arrow key, it'll split that right in half. And I've got my other half, I've got Visual Code on my other side. You may have Windows Notepad++. Whatever coding tool you want to use is fine with me, okay? So just remember, you can pause and rewind this video at any time if I go too fast, because I'm not going to be typing these out. I'm going to be copying and pasting. I'm not sure you'll have that capability, so just hit the pause button and we'll get it done together. Alright, so it says use the text editor or HTML editor of your choice to open the PC Reset text.csv. So I'm going to go File, Open File, and I've already navigated to this once. I'm going to go, because I saved it in a different place. Let's see, we are going to be in Web 210. You're going to navigate to your student data files, HTML03. We're working on the tutorial, so right here's our tutorial, and we're looking for PC Reset TXT. And right here it is. So I'm going to double click on that, and that's going to bring up the skeleton frame that it has for me, okay? So within the structural styles section, inserting the following rule to define the display properties of several HTML5 structure elements. So remember these structural styles for HTML5, the article, aside, big caption, figure, the footer we've seen earlier, a header, your main, nav, section. We are wanting to tell the browser to display those all as blocks, stack them on top of each other, right? So you can start typing that code in, and it goes under the structural style section of your spreadsheet. Okay. Alright, so we will complete the reset style sheet by adding other style rules that set default padding and margins around commonly used paged elements. Find some basic typographic properties, remove underlines from hypertext links that are found just within our navigation. Okay, so I'll remind you of how we know that it's just going to be in our navigation in just a second. So we're going to start by typing address, article, aside, block quote, and all of those you see here, and we're going to put it here. Okay, you can pause the video while you type in all of that. I've always found if I type it in, I learn it better than just copying and pasting. But this one I am going to type out, because I want you to remember that it's saying that we are only doing things to the links in the nav UL or the nav links. Okay, so we know that we're doing nav UL. That means we're only doing the unordered lists that are under a nav. Okay, and then we're going to do list style none, and list style image none. So we're not going to have any dots and no images beside of it. Okay, and next we're going to do the nav A. Okay, text decoration none, so no underlining. And then we're going to give our body a line height of 1. Okay, and we need to file, save as. We need to place our cursor right before the T and delete all the way up until the T and reset, because that's what the web page, that's the file name the web page will be looking for, PC Reset. Okay, and then we're going to save. Alright. So one is single spaced, and right here it shows you everything we just did. Save our changes. We did that. Okay. So now we need to use our editor to open the PC Home Text CSS file. So we'll do the same thing we did earlier. Open file. Now there's a PC Home Text HTML and there's a PC Home Text CSS. So make sure you grab the right one. Alright. Put your name and the date in the comment section, and file, save your document as PC_home. Go file, save as. Take the TXT and the underscore out, save, and you want to make sure you do that because that's what file name the HTML files are looking for. So if it's not named correctly, it won't find it. Now it says use your editor to open the PC Home Text HTML file. So we'll do that as well. PC Home TXT HTML file. Enter your name, date, and then save it without the text. File, save as. Take that TXT and the underscore out. Okay. Within the document head, directly after the title, that's here. Okay. Insert the following link elements to link the home page to the PCReset.css file, to the PC_styles1 CSS, and the PC home.css style sheets. And I just want you to look right here. Those are already in here for us. Okay, named correctly and everything. So the only thing we have to do is make sure that we put these in exactly like they're supposed to be. Okay. And there you go. Take some time to study the content and the structure of the HTML document. Pay particular attention to the use of ID and class names throughout the document. So let's take a little look-see here. Right here is our first one. Our section has an ID of left column. Okay, ID equals left column. We have another section that says ID right column. Okay. Class names, horizontal navigation for our nav. Class name, vertical navigation. Class, vertical navigation. Class, vertical navigation. Section ID, contact info. So see how we're applying different types of CSS to our HTML5 structures. Okay. Save the changes. You may want to keep this file open as we work with it some more. Anne has sketched the general layout that she wants for her home page right here. Okay. To get a better understanding of how the page content relates to Anne's proposed layout. So next we're going to explore page layout designs. So when we talk about page layout designs, we really need to think about what our users will be visiting our site on. Will they mostly be mobile users? Will they be laptop users? Combination of both? So we need to design our site to accommodate for all of those screen sizes, right? So we have fixed, fluid, and elastic layouts. Web page that's the three layouts, the three categories that they fall into. Fixed layout, size of the page and page elements are fixed, usually using pixels as the unit of measure, because remember we talked about pixels, it's static, right? That they don't move. Fluid layout, the width of the page elements are as a percent of the available screen width. And we talked about that earlier. Anytime you see a percent, it's going to be based on the percent of your viewport. An elastic layout, images and text are always sized in proportion to each other in M units. Okay, so you can see right here we've got the fixed layout versus fluid layout. Fixed, these are never change, okay? No matter what my screen size is, that's going to be the layout all the time, those pixels. But when we use fluid, using the percents, they're going to grow as a percentage of my screen size or shrink. And sometimes you want to do some really different stuff, shrinking items to get them down to such a small space as like a mobile device. This is responsive design, okay? This is what we say when responsive design, your page is going to respond to the different viewports in which a user renders the page. The book gives you a digital kiosk at a conference as an example. Different, just different screen resolutions. So we're going to work with width and height. The width and height of an element are set using the following properties: width and the value, and height and the value, right there. Where value is the width or height using one of the CSS units of measurement or as a percentage of the width or height of the parent element, okay? We can set maximum and minimum dimensions. We talked about that earlier. We can say I don't care how big the screen gets or how little it gets. The minimum width you're going to shrink down to is 640 pixels. And say the same thing about how big our screens get. The maximum is going to be 16 and 80 pixels. So we'll set those heights up as needed. Return to the PC Home CSS page. Okay. In our editor, add the following style rule to the body sections. Under the body styles. Within the body header styles, insert the following style rule to set the display type and width of the logo image. So let's see what we've done here. Our body is going to be what? Our body is going to be here to here, okay? And we're telling our body its width only needs to be 95% of our screen, okay? And then we're going to have 2.5 margin on one side and 2.5 margin on this side. We're telling it to center, margin left, auto, margin right, auto. That's how we're centering the body of the page. We don't want it to get any bigger than 960 pixels wide, and it can't get any smaller than 640 pixels wide. For our body header image, we want it to display as a block, and we want the width of that image to be 100% of the header, okay? So where's that at? Here's our header. So this is a very good example right here. You can see that this is only 95% and it's at the max width. So after it reaches those certain pixels, the area on the sides right here is what's going to grow, okay? Now, no matter how, we can watch my image, we want the image to be 100% of whatever the width of the body is, okay? Until it reaches the max width and the minimum width. So you can see it keeps shrinking until it starts getting cut off, okay? Let's go back to our CSS page. So the page body width is 95% of the window, and that's the browser window background. The logo is 100% of the body width, and the body background's right there, okay? Vertical centering. The centering of an element vertically can be accomplished by displaying the parent element as a table cell and setting the vertical align property to middle. For example, to vertically center the following H1 heading with a div element, you can see here we say display table cell, okay? Because there's different things we can do with table cells that we can't do within like a paragraph or something like that. So we're telling this div right here that's going to eventually have our H1 in it that we want it to be 40 pixels high, we want it to display like a table cell, and we want it to vertical align the middle, okay? So that's what that's going to do. Alright. Floating page content. Floating an element takes it out of position and places it along the left or right side of its parent element. So, to float an element, we apply float and then the position, okay? So, let's double check to make sure we know the original layout. Does it show us? No, okay. So its original position, you know, as going down the hierarchy, it builds up and it's all in blocks, right? Well, we're telling this to float to the right. So the element is floated to the right margin of the subsequent page content, which it looks like that's probably a paragraph, and the paragraph wraps around it, okay? So we can do float left, and you can see that all of these boxes from its original layout that are stacked on top of each other, they're floating left of each other. So it'll keep getting pushed as you push more, and they'll get tighter and tighter together. And they're aligned on one row. That's an important note that it says here. So remember that our body right here is 95%, right? So these can't be more than the width of the 95% or they're going to get knocked down. They don't have enough room to float. They're going to go up under each other. So let's return to our PC Home CSS right here. Okay. We're going to do, because there are 5 links in the navigation list, let's pull those up so we can see what we're talking about. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you can see right now they're all stacked on top of each other, right? Because they're just doing what they do. They're just stacked on here. See, there's nothing, they're just the blocks right now. They're just blocks, okay? So what we're going to do now is we're going to tell them that we want them all to have a width of 20%. Now go ahead and do that math. How many do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So 5 times 20 is 100, right? So that's 100% once we finally get them in here. So insert the following style rule. Because there are 5 links, you'll make each list item 20% of the width of the navigation list by adding the following style rule. So we're going to add it under horizontal navigation styles. Allied, we're going to put that under body header styles right here. Okay. So body header, our nav, horizontal navigation, LI. So if we do bring up our inspect again, let's bring this up. You can see it's under our header. There's our image. Okay. The nav, ULLI. So all of our navigations are in a LI tag. So we're telling all those LI tags to be 20%. Insert the following style rule within the horizontal navigation styles section to display every list item within the horizontal navigation list as a block floated on the left, okay? So once we do that, it takes those blocks and it says, okay, we're all blocks, but we're going to float to the left of each other. So let's take our page and refresh it. And you can see now they're all perfectly spaced out, horizontally floating left of each other. Okay. Alright. So they don't look that pretty, right? Well, these don't. These don't look that pretty because the background's different from the HTML, and the background of the links is only going to extend out to the 20%. So we need to fix that, and Anne wants us to fix it too. So we need to return to the PC Home CSS file, and within the horizontal navigation styles section, insert the following style rule to format the appearance. Okay, so we're going to do that, and we're telling it the nav horizontal navigation A to display block and text align center. So let's save this and see what it does to our links. Now they all look pretty. Okay, because not only did we tell the lists, we told the links to be too. Okay, so now it looks much better. Now sometimes we have to clear float. To ensure that an element is always displayed below floated elements, we have to use clear position, where position is either left, right, both, or none. Okay. Left displays the element only when the left margin is clear of floating objects. Right displays the element only when the right margin is clear of floating objects. Both displays the element only when both margins are clear floats. None displays the element alongside any floated object. So it should give us an example down here. The original layout is here, right, all stacked on top of each other. Then we're told to float an element on the right margin, so we've got a float right there. The last element, which is this element, we want to be up under here. So we have to say clear right. Clear that right floated margin and put it up under the bottom right there. So let's return to our CSS home PC home file and go to the left column style section. That's here. And we're going to insert this text. Alright, so we've got a little something different here than we've had previously. So we learned about these last semester. You remember we want exactly what's under the header, exactly under the body, and we want the image exactly that's under the header. We have this little pound button What does that pound button mean? Well, if we reflect back to when we looked at our PC Home HTML page, remember this left column? Where did we see it had an ID and not a class number? I mean a class name. So the section with the ID of left column, that's what we're doing right here. And that's the beginning text. Here. Okay? See, our little page right here is all jumbled up compared to the finished page. So we're going to make this float to the left side. Okay? So how are we going to do that? We do it by clear left, because remember these were all float left. So we have to clear that left margin, and we want it to float left up under that. And we want some padding, and of 1.5 m. So there's our padding up above and around to the left and to the right. And then we only want our width to be 33% of the body. So remember, the body's just here, right? From here to here. Okay? Let's see if we need to do anything. We got to do same thing with the right column style section. Okay? So that's where those images were. We're going to float them left of this one, and with the width of 67%. So let's save our changes here. Go back. So this is going to be floating to the left, which is here, but when we float our images left, it pushes it over here. Okay, so you ready? Let's refresh the page. There we go. And see, this is our right column right here, where these pictures are. Okay. It says note that you do not have to apply the clear property to the right column because you want it to display in the same row alongside the left column. Figure 316 highlights the style rules for the left and right columns. To complete the right column section, it wants us to display the images as block images with width of 100%. Now 100% of what? 100% of the 67% right here, right? And then the nav horizontal navigation LI, that looks like it is here, 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 and here. It wants them to be 25%. Okay, so let's add that in there real quick and see what happens. So if we bring up our inspection, it shows us right here. Oh, no, it doesn't. It shows us right here as our right column. Okay, that first image is what we want 100%. And then we have a nav horizontal navigation with UL, unordered list, and then a L. But also notice that the picture is part of our hyperlink. Okay, so all of those 4 pictures in the hyperlink are going to be 25%, and this is the hyperlink that goes with it, and that's the image that's 100% of our 67% right here. So let's save changes here and refresh, and there you go. They're all floating left. They're displaying as blocks. The section right column is a block now. And these are only 25%. And those are your images. Looks much better, doesn't it? So it wants us to increase the left column padding. Return to your CSS file, PC Home. Insert the property padding EM right here. into the section left column. We already had it in there. So what did it look like if we took this out? Refresh. Save. Refresh. Alright, that's what it looks like without it. So when we put it back in and save it and refresh, you can see it matches more what the right column looks like, and that's what they wanted. Refining a floated layout. Content box model. The width property refers to the width of an element content only. Additional space include paddings and borders. Border box model. The width property is based on the sum of the content, padding, and border spaces. Additional space taken up by the padding and border is subtracted from the space given to the content. Let's see if it gives us a little. So the content box model right here is the content only. The content is only 200 pixels here. It doesn't take into account the 10 pixels and the 5 pixels of the padding and the border, okay? The border box model, however, does take into effect that. So the additional space taken up by the padding and the border is subtracted from the space given to the content. So we may say the width is 200, the padding is 10, and the border is 5, but with the border box model, it's going to subtract those, and your actual content isn't going to be but 170 pixels. You can choose the layout model using the box sizing property, box sizing type, where the type is either content box or border box or inherit. And of course, whenever you use inherit, it's using what the parent's using. It is commonly entered in progressive enhancement. So this means, remember, that you have to, it depends on the browser, whether it's Moz or WebKit. And WebKit is both Chrome and Safari. Moz is Firefox. So let's set that. Let's return to the PC reset CSS file. Add the following gotta find it. Sorry. Okay. And we'll take this out. So we're going to take this out and save it. Because I've been bad. I've been putting stuff in that doesn't belong yet. And we're going to refresh it. Okay, so it looks funky, right? It doesn't look like it was supposed to look. And that's because we've told all of these things to do certain things. And it's getting wonky. It's getting confused. So if we go back over here and we add that under our baseline right here and click save, we're using the border box, which takes into account the sum, right? So right now our stuff's wonky because it's not taking into account any of the padding or anything else that we've put in. It's just totally saying my content's going to be this big. So once we put border box in, it's going to take the sum and it's going to make it pretty again. Just like that. Okay? I'll try not to put stuff in there I'm not supposed to in the next video. I apologize. Alright, so now let's work on our footer. Return to your PC Home CSS page. Here. Insert the following style rules. Now remember, you can pause this because I recommend you guys typing it in. It hangs in your brain better. Okay, so what we've done, let me take out what we're not supposed to have. So I've got footer, clear left. This isn't supposed to be in there yet. Okay. So we want our footer to clear left, right? You see right now it's all stacked on top of each other. Because let's see how it's set up. Vertical navigation, vertical navigation. They're all ULs. Okay, they're all just lists. So they're all just stacking up on top of each other. So what we want to tell it is we want it to clear left. So clear that border right here. Go up under it. Let's go back here. Footer, nav, vertical navigation. Float left with each of the navigation, vertical, with 22%. And footer section contact info. That would be here. We're wanting it to be larger, right? We're telling it to be 34%. So there's our ID, contact info. And the rest of them are just using classes. They're all nav, vertical navigation. And we're telling them to be 22%. This whole thing right here, this nav UL. Okay, so let's go back in here and Control S. Come back to our sheet and refresh, and it just lines up so pretty. Okay. Okay, now we're going to add the setting for a footer background color. So we're going to add an RGB color right there, background color. Save our changes. And we'll go back and refresh it. So why is it not changing? So we have something called a container collapse. And recall that a floated element is taken out of the document flow, so that is no longer part of that element that contains it. Literally, it's floating free of its container. When every element in its container is floated, there is no content left. As far as the browser is concerned, the container is empty and thus has no height or a background color. And this is a situation called the container collapse. This shows you right here. This is usually the container. See how small it is? Okay. And it's because all of them are floated and it's not including really the height of it. So what we need to do is to add container with the pseudo class of after, clear both, content is empty, and display as table. So let's get that up. We'll copy. And we'll just put it in here and save it. And we'll go back and refresh, and that should fix it. Okay, so if you ever have that problem, just remember container collapse. The clear property keeps the placeholder element from being inserted until both margins are clear of floats, and the element itself is a web table and contains an empty string. So what we're doing is we're just creating an empty space behind these that has the background color in them. Okay, and I think that's it for T3, you guys. That's what our final page layout looks like. So we're gonna, if you have any questions, reach out to me. I'll be in the virtual classroom Monday 1 to 1:50. If you can't make it, you know, I know some of you have to work during that time. That's fine. I can always meet with you virtually if you have a question afterwards. Take care.